Hey y'all, it's Ashley. I'm back with another video, and today, as you can see by the title, we are going to be reading some bookish assumptions that y'all have about me. So I don't know who originally came up with this idea. I don't know where it started, but it was a fantastic idea. So shout out to whoever did it, because I'm super excited to be doing this. So this is our Patreon pick of January. As I always say, each month patrons get the opportunity to vote on a video that they would like to see me do during the month. And this one won for the month, but it came very close. We had to do another runoff. We had to do another runoff because it was between this and going over all my unread books, which I'm low-key happy that this one won, because that other video would have put me to shame. I'm just saying. So I actually went on Instagram, Twitter, and our patron Discord and asked, what are some bookish assumptions that you have about me? And you know what? There were some serious assumptions that went on. I'm going to go through as many of these as I can and as quickly as I can. And some of these are funny, some of these are really interesting. So let's go ahead and start. Contemporary and romance are your favorite genres. Okay. So just hear me out on this. If you know me, I read everything. There's not much that I won't touch, honestly, at this point at all. Like, there are genres that I haven't tried, but I'm willing to try them. I really am just an open book when it comes to trying new books. I mean, if I don't like it, I don't like it. Like, that's the worst case scenario. But what I have found in the past year or so is that I lean heavily towards contemporary, which I think in the book community we say contemporary, but in my librarian mind I think we're talking about realistic fiction, which, yes, realistic fiction and romance, I kind of lean heavily towards those two. Would I classify them as my favorites? I don't know, but we're headed in the right direction with that comment. You don't like tomes? No, it's not that I don't like tomes, it's that I need to prioritize reading more tomes. I definitely made that a goal that I didn't really speak of in my goals video, was to read at least one book over 500 pages every month. I've already done that for the month of January. So I've read one book that was over 700 pages for the month of January, so I'm on the right track. It's not that I don't like tomes, it's just that I don't prioritize my time to read tomes, which I should. I really should. I really should. I'm an adventurous reader. Yes, I am an adventurous reader, and I like the insta-love trope. I like the insta-love trope when it's done right. Sometimes it's not done right at all, but I've grown to appreciate it more because I read a lot of shorter novellas now, especially in the romance genre. This one's cute, that you have the best recommendations on the planet, and if I ever needed one, you give me such a good one, and one that no one ever talks about. Well, hopefully I do give y'all recommendations of books that may not always be on your radar. I try to read a balance of well-known books and books that are lesser known, just to kind of mix it up a little bit. Okay, you read super fast, and yes, I do read super fast. You coordinate your bookmarks with your books. No. No, I do not at all. I am a creative person, but I do not have the time to do that. You really love audiobooks. I do love audiobooks. Audiobooks really help me get reading done because I'm super busy, like very busy. So audiobooks definitely help with that. And I read multiple books at once. That is the truth. On Goodreads right now, I am currently reading, I think, anywhere between 15 to 20 books. And I'm not actively reading all those books at the same time. If we're talking about actively reading, I probably actively read 3 to 4 books at a time. But there are always in between 15 to 20 books queued on Goodreads that I have started or touched or whatever the case may be. The next one, you read fast and own over 100 books. Yes, I do read fast, like I said in that last one. And yes, I own over 100 books. Yeah, I do. You have a lot of bookmarks. I do have a lot of bookmarks. I just never show them at all, but I do own a lot of bookmarks. Don't get burnt out by books focused on Black trauma. I don't. I don't know what that says about me as a person, but they don't burn me out at all. Like, it's horrible, but they don't burn me out. Romance is in your top 2 fave genres. I don't like, do I really talk about romance that much? My channel? Like, do I talk about romance that much? I mean, I look at my numbers and they say I read a lot of romance, but do I talk about romance that much? Because you're talking to a creator who once like hated romance, like was very against reading romance. You've maxed out your library card and had to pay overdue fines, and you have a big plan to get baby girl her first library card. Okay, so I have maxed out my library card. My library card right now is maxed out, and yes, I work in a library. Go to the library. I mean, this is where I work, and yes, I have had to pay fines. Yes, even as a librarian, I have not returned stuff on time. It's ridiculous. And there is no big plan to get baby girl a library card because she got one when she was like 3 months old, and her card is maxed out too. You will not dog ear your pages. Not true. I am an avid believer that once I pay for a book, it is mine to just, I mean, I write, I highlight, I make notation, I use sticky notes, I dog ear pages. I very much so am physically hands-on with my books, which I know is not everybody's cup of tea. Everybody doesn't like that, but I am not the type of person who believes that every book that I own needs to be kept in pristine condition by not writing in it, not dog earing it. Like, that's just not me as a person. You're a badass and you can't change my mind because I love your videos. Why, thank you. I am glad that you think so. You prefer romance books you pick up more than critically acclaimed literature. Well, what is the definition of critically acclaimed? Like, who is to determine that? I don't mean to get philosophical on you, but what one person determines as critically acclaimed, I may just not see as critically acclaimed. And I don't say I prefer one over the other. There is no preference. I think that I just have a tendency to lean in more direction, but I don't know. That's the same things people say like my favorite genres. I don't know if I prefer one over the other. Okay, so I'm gonna actually include the name on this one because this is so interesting. There is a Twitter page out there called Droid Librarian, which I think is so cool. And they said this unit assumes you renew/return your items on time. I do not. Ever. Which is so sad to say because I work in a freaking library and I don't do it. I don't know how to explain that phenomenon, but none of us do, okay? Like, none of us do. Okay, next one is you read really fast. I do read really fast. You love books as a kid. Absolutely love books as a kid. When people visit your house pre-pandemic, they are shocked by how many books you own. Yes, the last visitors that I had here, well, the last visitor I have is a librarian, so I'm not gonna count her, but prior to that, I had a group of friends visit and they were like, dang, you got your own library in here? Like, what? So yes, I have had people who are shocked by the number of books that I own, but they also are not avid readers. So it always is shocking to people who are not avid readers. My family though, they're used to it. They're just so accustomed to it. But yeah, people who are not as accustomed to it, yeah, they're like, wow. This is, but they like it. They think it's pretty cool. This one is funny. You read all day and don't work. I don't. I don't read all day. I have a full-time job. It is not possible for me to read all day. There are times when I'm in meetings all day, so no. Although it seems like I read all day, I wish I could read all day. I think that because I work on decreasing my sub-vocalization, which is when you're actually sounding out each word in your head. I don't know how to explain it, but it slows your reading process down, and when you decrease your subvocalization, it increases your reading speed. So because I've been working on that, I do read faster, and it probably seems like, where do you find time to read all your stuff? But that's how. And also take into consideration that I listen to a lot of audiobooks. My physical and ebook reading compared to my audiobook reading, they're split probably like 50-50. So half of my reading that I do through the month is audio, and I listen to audiobooks whenever I can, whether that's on the commute, cooking dinner, doing dishes, or, you know, hanging out with a little one. So take that into mind as well. But yes, I do have a full-time job and I'm a parent, so no. Okay, switching over to Instagram. The first one, you have a killer middle grade collection. I do have a pretty decent middle grade collection, but y'all never see it because of the angle that I shoot my stuff. Most of my middle grade is back that way, and it's a whole section, like that whole section right there, all of that is middle grade. This is a good one. You feel guilty about your physical TBR. Yes and no. I go through reading processes that I don't show y'all on camera. Like, I don't do unhaul videos on camera, so you never really get to see me unhaul. But this collection is constantly shifting, and I have a coworker that loves to read as much as I do. So anything that I know that I'm not gonna read or I've read and I'm like, I don't need to keep this, I pass along to her. Especially like if I get duplicate copies and stuff like that. I do feel like I need to read my physical TBR down, but I don't think I feel guilty about it. You have loved reading since you learned how to read. According to my parents, that is true. I have always been an avid reader. I broke off a little bit when I was in college because it was just harder for me to read for fun in college because of my major. I was a history major, so I did a lot of reading, like textbook reading, and also a lot of primary source reading, so that took up a lot of my time. So I didn't read as much for fun, but of course I picked it back up again. You read with baby girl every day. That is absolutely true. We read every single day. She loves to read. She goes to her bookshop. Like, if I have a physical book in my hand at all, she immediately goes to her bookshelf and picks out one of her books and brings them to me to read. You only rock with hardcovers. Not true. I actually don't only rock with hardcovers. I prefer paperbacks because they're cheaper. I like hardcovers. They're very, very nice. They look nice on your shelves, but I don't have the pockets to buy hardcovers. A lot of the hardcovers that you see on my shelf have actually been gifted to me, whether through publishers or through friends or viewers. Like, I don't typically buy hardcovers myself unless it's something that I'm looking forward to. If a book is out of place in a bookstore, you'll put it right back in the right section. I do, and it's out of habit. That's library habit. I just do it. It is a habit. You rarely watch TV, if at all. I do watch TV, but rarely. I don't watch TV like that. I couldn't tell you the latest shows that are on TV right now. You've never read a Western. That is true. See, I would be willing to read a Western. I've just never read a Western. I don't know of many. I know of some, and I can't remember the author's name, but I see them in the library all the time. So I haven't read Westerns. We have a whole Western section in the library. Maybe I should pick one out and try it. You love all genres. That is very true. I love all genres, or I'm willing to try a genre, even like one that I haven't read. You'll read anything or at least give it a try. That is very true. That is very, 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 very true. You didn't always read diversely. This is a tricky question because if you're saying like I didn't read diversely, like in my life I only read white, heterosexual, cisgendered books, that's not true. I grew up in a household where that wasn't allowed. Do I read more diversely now than I have in the past? Absolutely, because I always think that there's room to grow. But no, I won't say that I didn't always read diversely. I think that the volume in which I do is much greater than it has been before. You get first dibs at library sales. Actually, I don't. When library sales happened pre-pandemic, I had to go just like the rest of the public. So There were no first dibs. it was like first come first serve. We don't care what affiliation you have with the library, which is cool. I mean, there's always, no matter when I went, like it was usually over the course of just one entire day. No matter when I went, there was always great stuff to pick out. All of your books are in good condition. They're not. Some of my books are not in good condition at all. Some of them are very much so secondhand, very, very old books. Some that published 20 plus years ago. So yeah. You take notes as you read. When you audiobook, you write notes after you've listened to it. So I actually write notes as I listen. I have a whole notebook that I use to take notes when I am listening to an audiobook, or I use a notes app on my phone because I want to make sure that I have as much information as possible when I go back and I write my full-length reviews. So you are right. You're a good cook. I am a decent cook when I want to cook. You can fly through a book easily. Yes, I can, depending upon what it is. If it's a romance book, middle grade, probably YA, or even just sometimes even literary fiction. Science fiction and fantasy, I do not easily fly through. I know that I have to pace myself out a little differently with science fiction and fantasy because of the world building aspect to it. Books that take place in our world, like within, you know, modern time, are usually a little bit easier for me to fall into, but fantasy and science fiction, I have to restructure my brain to function a little bit differently. You write in and highlight your like crazy in your books. I do. I love annotating my books. It is such a thing that I love because it's so fun going back and looking at your reactions that you had when you were reading the text. I'm reading one book next month, which will be in a video after this one, where I believe that I will be able to read my annotations and annotate my annotations type of situation. So that's going to be really, really cool. But that is a true assumption. It's hard for you to just read a book. The historian you is analyzing everything. Yes. That's what people don't realize. And I think that it's very, very hard for me not to analyze and make connections and learn something out of everything, even if it's not intended. I feel like every book has some form of social commentary in it, or historical commentary, political, environment, like some type of commentary is made in it, because in my mind, books are written from the experiences of the author. They come from something they've seen, something they've heard, and I have the habit of trying to figure out what those things are whenever I read books, and I'm drawn to books that make stuff like that easy to see within the pages of a book. But yeah, I can't help it. I can never just read a book and just read it. I always analyze it, which can be a good or a bad thing depending upon how you look at it. You hated reading classics in school. You are absolutely right. The only classics that I liked in school were probably Romeo and Juliet, The Yellow Wallpaper, and I think I had to read The Color Purple in school, and I think those are the only ones that I liked. Everything else, I wasn't mature enough yet. I wasn't in the headspace to read books like that just yet. I'm guessing you're really well educated and have really discerning taste. Well, thank you. That is a compliment. And the last one from Instagram was, you love science fiction. No. I'm new to science fiction, so I can't say that I love science fiction because I don't think I've read broad enough in the genre to say that. I am trying to expand and broaden my horizons in science fiction, so maybe in the next year or two I'll be able to say yes, that is a true statement. Okay, so these last few ones are from Patreon, and the first one says that you were a big reader growing up and you grew up in a family that valued reading. No. It's yes and no. So my family, they weren't readers, but they felt that it was important for me to constantly be reading. So in that sense, yeah, they did value reading, but I didn't grow up in a family that loved to read at all. That your best friends are fellow readers? Absolutely not. My best friends are not readers at all. you make an instant judgment about someone if you find out that they don't read. No, because I'm surrounded by people who don't read, so it's not abnormal for me to continue to meet people who don't read. I think it's the other way. I feel like I get judged for how much I read, so it's a completely different situation there. Okay, so the next one, you get most of your books from the library checkout. Yes, I do. Most of the books that I read during the month, that's the problem now, is that I read so much from the library and I don't read a lot from my own collection, which I need to kind of figure out how to change that, because that's not really good. Polyamorous romance wouldn't necessarily be your thing. Not true. I actually read my first polyam book last year and rather enjoyed it, and I have a polyam book that I'm letting up for February that I think I'm going to like as well. You enjoy reading most when it is a comic, graphic novel, and manga. Honestly, low-key, yeah. Yeah, low-key. I love the complexity of graphic novels, manga, and comics, especially when they're like these huge worlds. Like when you think about the complexity of like the DC universe and like Marvel universe, I can talk about that and nerd and geek out about that all the time. A book is more likely to be your favorite if it makes you sad rather than if it makes you happy. That is so true. My top 3 books of 2020 all made me disgustingly sad or made me cry like a baby. So you are right on point with this. It's so true. If a book is gonna make me sad and depressed, it's more likely to be one that I'm gonna give 5 stars to. Once again, I don't know what that says about me as a person. Okay, next one. You're in desperate need of a book on haul. Not right now. Not at this very second. I just did a wave of an unhaul maybe a couple of weeks ago. So not just yet, but probably in the next couple of weeks. You have no desire to be a writer, at least not now. Very true. I have no desire to write right now. I did when I was younger, but right now no, not at all. Being surrounded by books gives you a feeling of safety. Oh my gosh. Okay, so the person who wrote, they know me. They know me well. So yes, it does give me a feeling of safety. You love being a booktuber, but sometimes the pressure gets to you and you wouldn't mind taking a short break from it every now and then. Yeah. Sometimes I do get that feeling. Sometimes I'm like, I really don't feel like sitting in front of a camera, and I need to be better about drawing that line and saying, no, I'm not doing this today. Okay, next one. Most of the people you are close to in real life, family, friends, are not readers. Yes, very, very true. They're not. Let's see, next one. You're not the biggest fantasy fan, but you'll read it on occasion. It's not that I'm not the biggest fantasy fan. I think I'm going through a dry spell of reading fantasy. I read a couple of fantasy books this past month, or in January so far. So I'm getting back into it, but I went through a very huge fantasy dry spell where like I wasn't feeling the urge to read a lot of fantasy. You have high standards for redemption arcs. I do. Oh my gosh, I do. I have very, very high standards for redemption arcs, like, because I can very much read a book and be like, I don't think that they should have gotten away with that so easily. A cover doesn't necessarily have to be pretty to intrigue you, but if it's interesting, you're more likely to indulge in a cover buy. Very true. I didn't even think about that my own self. Yeah, a cover doesn't necessarily have to be pretty. For me, I think it's more about of course the inside, what's inside of the book, because there are some covers out there that are absolutely gorgeous and the books are not good at all. But if the cover is intriguing enough, I am more inclined to pick it up. The next one is you don't read a lot of translated works but would like to read more. Absolutely. That is one of my huge goals for 2021, is to read more translated works, and Yanni is a gem and is helping me navigate that right now as we speak. All right, and the last set is you love the found family trope. I do love the found family trope because I understand what it's like to have people who are not your biological family feel more like family than those who are truly related to you. You're not in the group that hates it when the spine of the book breaks. I don't hate it. I don't. Yeah, I'm not. It's easier to read when the spine is broken. And a broken spine, a book has been loved. I'm here to love and appreciate and indulge my books. Your book buying always ends up higher than the budget. Not true, believe it or not. Because I have a very strict budget, children are extremely expensive. Love my child, but extremely expensive. Because of that, I'm very, very mindful about my budget. A lot of what you see in my book hauls, as I always say, I get a lot of my books secondhand. A lot of them are not brand new. And a lot of my book hauls do end up being stuff that has been sent to me. So no, I don't spend as much as people may think that I spend in books based on what you see in my book hauls, which is very, very intriguing. Now, during the holiday season, I did indulge myself a little bit because it was a holiday season. My budget around that time, I was working with a little bit more, but usually during a typical month, nope, I'm not buying as much as you think I'm buying. And if I have a lot, it's because it's come from my secondhand bookstore, or I get them off of eBay, or I get them off of thrift book. You only read in English but wish you could read in more than one. Oh, you were so right. I wish I kept up with French. So I've been to France twice for school related stuff, and I used to be able to read decently in French and communicate decently. It wasn't fluent, but it was enough to get me by. And I have lost a lot of that, and I wish I could still read in French. And then in addition to that, I wish I could read in Spanish. And the very last one in this cluster is, you have at some point spilled a drink all over a book that wasn't yours. Absolutely. I have completely ruined a library book that I've had to pay for because I spilled a drink all over it. And of course, it wasn't my book. I don't talk about that much, but yeah, it has happened. All right, y'all, so thank you so much to everyone who sent me their bookish assumptions about me. Some of these are, most of these actually, y'all, were pretty like spot on. Y'all know me very, very well, which that's cool. As always, if you like this video, give it a thumbs up. If you want to see more content from me, click the subscribe button, hit the bell for notifications. If you are looking to follow me on social media, or if you're looking for ways to support my channel, the links will be down in the description box, and I'll be back with another video soon. Bye.